Hello and welcome once again. My name is Diptarup Sidar and I am an assistant professor in the Amity School of Languages, Amity University, Chhattisgarh. And this is the third session that we have with the poem Lotos-Eaters by Lord Alfred Tennyson. Now see, in the earlier two sessions, what we did is we introduced the poem. We know the background of the poem now. We know the verse structure of the poem, which we discussed in detail in the very last video. It was a very short video. I had planned to start the poem in that video, but then it would have been too long. So I have divided it, and this is the video in which we will be discussing the poem. Not the whole of it, obviously. The first part of the poem, which is the introduction, where the sailors, they have come to this land. They meet the Lotos-Eaters. They taste the fruit. They sit down and they decide that we'll not go from here. We'll stay here forevermore. So that is what happens in the first 5 stanzas. So let's get into it directly without wasting any more time. The poem, like we have seen in the last video also, and I had this entire board, it was completely messed up. The first 4 lines, iconic lines: "Courage," he said, and pointed toward the land. Again, toward the land, if I am to pronounce it their way. "Courage," he said, and pointed toward the land. "This mounting wave will roll us shoreward soon. In the afternoon they came unto a land in which it seemed always afternoon." We have talked about seemed, charmed. We have talked about toward, so things that they spoke. In Milton's time, heaven was not heaven, it was han. It was one word, or probably han, but it was one syllable. It was not even 2 syllables like heaven. It was han. It was 1 syllable. But anyways, coming back here, "Courage," he said, and pointed to the land. Who is this he? Who says courage? All of a sudden, what is happening here? We don't know how this poem is beginning. Who is the person saying courage? Where are they going? What did they see? Where are they coming from? We know nothing. It feels as if this poem has started somewhere in the middle. And guess what? The poem has started in medias res, which is Greek for in the middle of things. Now see, this was a very common case when it came to epics. So epics would start in medias res. Epics don't have a very clear-cut beginning. The epics start, all the epics, they start somewhere in the middle, and then through flashbacks you come to know the past, and then it moves on towards the future. So it starts somewhere in the middle, in medias res, and so does this poem. Tennyson clearly very, intentionally wanted to create this effect of in medias res. He says courage. Who says courage? We don't know. One of the sailors. Might be Ulysses, might be any other sailor, but one of them says that courage, and points towards the land. This mounting wave, this part again is within inverted commas, which means it's being spoken. So this mounting wave will roll us shoreward soon. The wave is mounting up. It's going up and it will roll them towards the shore very soon. In the afternoon they came unto a land in which it seemed always afternoon. Now see, again we come back to the narration. So here we have, unlike a dramatic monologue in which we have only one speaker speaking, this is more like a narration is going on, and someone is narrating that a few people were going, he said this, and then they went to this land. So this is how it is going. It's more like a narration than like a simple, dramatic monologue. However, a monologue, so to say. However, it says that in the afternoon they came unto a land in which it seemed always afternoon. I want you all to remember this. Throughout the poem you will find a lot of repetitions. Every time you find a repetition, you would know that this repetition is meant to give you the sense of drowsiness throughout. And it is the repetitions in the words and the wordplay that is done through repetitions that you get a sense that this poem does not want you to know whether time is passing or whether time is right where it was. So it says that in the afternoon they came unto a land in which it seemed always afternoon. It seems like that land is always in a state of afternoon, as if the time doesn't run over there. The time has stopped. So all round the coast the languid air did swoon. All around the coast there was this languid air, this very mellow, a very cheery kind of an air, and the air did swoon. What is happening here, people? Like I have discussed even before, in the discussions of Ulysses, we will be looking at the figures of speech. The figures of speech, that is what we know as rhetorics, when we read the poems, so that you remember these figures of speech. We know about metaphors, we know simile, we know synecdoche, we know a few of those. We know transferred epithet. All of them are in the explanation video for Ulysses, but in here we'll learn some new figures of speech. One of them, which comes in right here, we have discussed this earlier as well, is personification. The air is personified. Tennyson does this a lot. Tennyson has personified the air which swoons. What is the meaning of swoons? To faint, in a way. To swoon is to make such a motion as if you would faint very soon. And this swooning motion is made by whom? It is made by the air. So the air is a person. So all round the coast the languid air did swoon, breathing like one that hath a wearing dream. See, immediately after this, the air is swooning like someone who has had a weary dream. In this line you have two figures of speech together, and that is genius. So breathing like one, the moment he says like, he is using simile. So the air is breathing like a person who is having a weary dream. Now, can a dream be weary? A dream cannot be weary. The person dreaming can become weary by having the dream. So sometimes you have a dream, and then because of the dream, when you get up, you are tired, or it disturbs you in a way, or it could do a lot of things. It could make you happy, it could do anything with you. So whenever we have words like this, what is it? What is a weary dream? So a weary dream is an example of something we have also discussed earlier. It is a transferred epithet, also known as hyperlage. So an epithet is an adjective. Here weary is the epithet, which should be the man or the woman. Here all the sailors are men. So the man should be weary, but the man is not weary, the dream is weary. So the epithet has been transferred from the man to the dream. Therefore, it is a transferred epithet. So anyways, interesting. All round the coast, this languid air did swoon, breathing like one that hath a wearing dream, as if the air was breathing. The air itself is breathing like someone who is having a very disturbing dream, or something which is tiring them down. Full-faced above the valley stood the moon. Now, if you looked up, you could see the moon full-faced down. So as if the man on the moon is also looking at you. And like a downward smoke, again, like a downward smoke. So a simile is coming in over here. And like a downward smoke, the slender stream along the cliff to fall and pause and fall did seem. The slender stream along the cliff. Now here begins something which we'll find a lot more in the third stanza itself. Tennyson loves doing this, and in this poem you would find this particular figure of speech a lot. I'll not erase figures of speech and repetitions, because they are probably the most important things that we need to look out for. Repetitions, figures of speech. So like a downward smoke, the slender stream along the cliff to fall and pause and fall did seem. The slender stream along the cliff. Here the lines, it seems, are running over the other. It's not so clear here. Let us go to the third stanza. We'll understand this run on lines, this run on lines phenomenon, and it is very interesting. So, and like a downward smoke, the slender stream along the cliff, there's a stream that is running down a cliff, and it seems as if it is not just falling. It is falling and then pausing and then falling. Do you see? Fall and pause and fall. It seems this repetition itself, it is caused to bring you back to your earlier state and then go back again to a next state, come back to your earlier state, go back to the next state. So you are hanging somewhere in between. It is a land that doesn't make you reach any conclusions. You keep hanging in between. Probably very similar to some kind of a procrastination. Running circles in my head where you sit there. Alright, so procrastination, I was just reminded of a Simple Plan song. But anyways, procrastination is something that Hamlet goes through. Procrastination is a lot of thinking, overthinking, thinking so much that you almost forget what you were thinking. So it's an amazing exercise, by the way. You could try it sometime. However, the next stanza, a land of streams, just like the earlier stanza began with courage. In the next stanza, we have a land of streams, some like a downward smoke. See, again, downward smoke is repeated from the earlier paragraph. A land of streams, some like a downward smoke, slow dropping veils of thinnest lawn did go. So it seems like now in this paragraph, in the first paragraph, we saw how they came into a land in which there was this always afternoon, time is not running, it's as if the same time is there. In the second stanza, he talks about this, the narrator talks about this land as a land of streams. And streams are often, connected to a flow, a never-ending flow of things. So something which does not simply reach a conclusion, something which keeps flowing, maybe a desire to never go back. But anyways, a land of streams, some like a downward smoke, slow dropping veils of thinnest lawn did go. So it seems as if these are dropping slowly on veils of thin lawn. Now lawn, what is a lawn? A lawn is basically a type of a cloth, a fabric. Okay, and it seems as if a cloth is flowing down, and some through wavering lights and shadows broke, rolling a slumberous sheet of foam below. See, poetry, like I've discussed before, is visual. It's word paintings, it's very visual. You have to visualize what has been said. So here what is explained is that some of the streams through wavering lights and shadows broke. Now this is something which is very difficult to explain in simple words, but maybe the island, the mystic element in the island, I'll just write it down, the mystic element in this island is evoked through such images, as if a stream which is going through lights and shadows, maybe the sunlight is falling, filtering through the leaves of the through the leaves of the trees, or through very dense forest. A little light is falling and most of it is shadows, and through these lights and shadows the river is running, rolling a slumberous sheet of foam below. And wherever this stream falls in the sense, since it is falling down, since it is going down in the form of a cascade, fall and pause and fall, when it falls down you can see a lot of foam. So there is a sheet of foam that you can see below. They saw, now we come back to they, so the mariners. So the mariners saw the gleaming river seaward flow. This river is flowing towards the sea from the inner land, far off 3 mountain tops. Now see, they saw the gleaming river seaward flow from the inner land. Now from the inner land, and I'll come back to what I was about to discuss in the last paragraph about run on lines. So in these two lines, what is interesting is if you read from the inner land, it does not make any sense. But if you read the earlier line, it makes sense. They saw the gleaming river seaward flow from the inner land. So the river is flowing towards the sea from the inner land. This is called this very process of writing, this technique of writing in which the line is ended. The line is ended, but the meaning of the line gets transferred to the next line, and it gets finally finished in the next line. It's called run-on lines or enjambment. So this is Tennyson's personal jam. So enjambment. So run-on lines, enjambment, you can find over here in the next stanza. We'll get it even more. So they saw the gleaming river seaward flow from the inner land. Again, from the inner land, after the inner land you get a colon, and then far off. Between inner land and far off you have a gap. This gap is called caesura. Caesura, we have discussed this before during Ulysses. Caesura is a gap which you can find in a line where between two parts of the same line there is a division, just like in here. So from the inner land, far off, 3 mountain tops, 3 silent pinnacles of aged snow. So far off you can see 3 mountain tops, 3 silent pinnacles. Silent pinnacles, something at the top of aged snow. So the snow has aged, it's old, very old. Stood sunset flushed. Now see again, this aged snow stood sunset flushed. Enjambment, again enjambment. You'll see a lot of enjambment in this poem. Stood sunset flushed doesn't make sense, but aged snow stood sunset flushed. So the snow is flushed with sunset. There is a lot of sunset falling on the snow. So the light from the sun during the sunset. Now we know that it is not afternoon anymore. Now it is not the eternal afternoon. The sunset has come. Now let's go further. And dewed with showery drops, upclomb the shadowy pine above the woven copse. So dewed with showery drops. This goes on to the next line. What is dewed with showery drops? A shadowy pine, a huge pine tree. There is this huge pine tree, the pine trees are something like, these are conifers, has grown above the copse of forest. So a copse is a very dense jungle, and the jungle is dense, but there is one single pine tree that is above all of it. And this pine tree, the tops of it, they are dewed with showery drops. So you see, this is the way in which the island has been imagined. So in the first stanza, they come to the island, they describe the atmosphere around the island, where it seems as if there will be no end to the day, or nothing is going to end. In the second stanza, we get more natural beauty of the island. So it is more like utopia, right? Utopia is a state in which everything is good, everything looks good, everything is perfect in itself. But sometimes what happens in utopias is that they turn out to be an evil version of themselves, and that is what we called dystopia. So utopia, dystopia. This utopia that we find in this paragraph is very soon going to be transformed into a dystopic landscape. So we'll see that. Not just a dystopic landscape, but a dystopic mindscape. Let's go ahead. In the third stanza, we can find the charmed sunset. Now see, the charmed sunset lingered low adown. If I have to make this in iambic pentameter, I have to say charmed. I cannot say charmed, because if I say charmed, it won't make sense. So the charmed sunset lingered low adown in the red west. See, after adown, in the red west. Where did it linger down? In the red west. Enjambment. Again, Through mountain clefts the dale was seen far inland. Again, enjambment. I will not repeat enjambment anymore, because now you can clearly see how enjambment or run-on lines is happening in almost every line. And you can figure out which are the lines where there is no enjambment and which are the lines in which you have an enjambment. So I'll just not repeat it after this, but we'll keep a lookout for them. The charmed sunset lingered lower down in the red west. Through mountain clefts the dale was seen far inland. So the sunset lingered low in the red west. Why is the west red? Because during the sunset the color of the sky is red. Through mountain clefts. Now what is through mountain clefts and what is the dale which can be seen far inland? So, oh god, did I just remove repetitions? I should not be removing repetitions. Repetitions is very important. Repetitions. Okay, so the charmed sunset lingered lower down in the red west. Through mountain clefts the dale was seen far inland. This is a cleft, people. If this is a mountain, this is another mountain, this is a cleft. Through mountain clefts, from here if you see, you can see a plain land. Kind of a, plain long valley, and this is a valley also. So through this cleft you can see a plain which is called a dale. So this is a dale that you can see. And the mountain clefts, the dale was seen far inland, and the yellow down bordered with palm. And in the dale you could see that it was completely yellow in color. Maybe because of the sunlight, or maybe because it was yellow because of the grasslands. But it was covered with what? It was covered with what kind of trees? It was covered with palm trees. So the moment you see the idea of palm trees, I hope you remember drawing palm trees when you were little. It looks something like this. And palm trees usually they resonate a sense of an oasis. So this is more like an oasis than just a simple island. A land in which you can see streams and you can see palm trees going everywhere. So it's more like an Arabian desert fantasy that these people have jumped into. An Arabian desert fantasy. That sounds good. Yeah. So bordered with palm and many a winding vale and meadow. So there's a valley like this, and then there's meadow after that, set with slender galingale. You get galingale is ginger plants. Galingale would be ginger. So you get slender galingale plants, a land where all things always seem the same. This is the main thing. This is the crux of the poem. They have come to a land. This is the land of the Lotos-Eaters, where everything seems the same. And round about the keel with faces pale. And what is a keel? Okay, so they are traveling in a boat, correct? Pardon my artistic incompetence. Let's say that this is a boat, and let's say that this is the forward part of the boat. I'm sorry, this is the backward part of the boat, and this is the forward part of the boat. Okay, so forward, backward. This is called the keel. This looks like Aladdin's lamp to me. All you need to do is maybe do this. Or it could also look like a teacup. But anyways, we'll just imagine that this is not a teacup or an Aladdin's lamp. This is a boat. Yeah, believe me. And this is the back side, front side. This front side is known as the keel. And just beyond the keel, what can they see? Round about the keel with faces pale. So you see keel pale. There is a sound play in here. And he does this kind of sound play later also. Round about the keel with faces pale. Dark faces pale. Again see pale. Repetitions. Dark faces pale against that rosy flame. What is the rosy flame? The rosy flame is the light that comes from the sun. So due to the sun, these dark faces that are coming in front of their boat, they can see some dark faces coming, which are pale because of the light of the sun. So dark is usually not pale. So usually dark is the opposite of pale. When you go pale, you go white. That is what happens. So this could be an oxymoron in that way. So people, another figure of speech, oxymoron. What is an oxymoron? An oxymoron is where you have two very different or opposite meaning words clubbed together in one sentence or in one phrase. So dark pale faces would be oxymoronic, because dark pale doesn't go together. Anyways, dark faces pale against that rosy flame. It is pale because of that rosy flame. The mild-eyed. So you can imagine these Lotos-Eaters, the mild-eyed melancholy Lotos-Eaters came. Mild-eyed melancholy, I can see a little bit of an alliteration over there. Perhaps we have an alliteration, but we'll get better alliterations later. So the mild-eyed melancholy Lotos-Eaters came. So mild-eyed. So when someone is drunk or someone is intoxicated, you have them mild-eyed. They are not even looking fully at you, and they are just simply somehow there as if they are drowsy. I'm just trying to be mild-eyed. It is very difficult to be mild-eyed, to be very frank. But anyways, this is how they came. They were mild-eyed. They had this fruit in their hands, and they came up front and they gave these fruits to the sailors. And when the sailors eat them, what is going to happen? Let's see. So in the next fourth stanza, the branches they bore of that enchanted stem. So this is again, the Lotos-Eaters have come in, and now the Lotos-Eaters are being described. Branches they bore of that enchanted stem. What is the enchanted stem? The stem of the lotus flower. Laden with flower and fruit. So there was a lotus flower and the lotus fruit. So you have both the flower and the fruit. They are coming with it, and it's as if they have welcomed the mariners. Come, it is a feast. Have a feast. So branches they bore of that enchanted stem, laden with flower and fruit, whereof they gave to each, but whoso did receive of them. So they gave to each, but everyone did not receive. Some of them received it. So some of them consumed it. And that makes sense, because if everyone received it, then everyone would still be in the island of the Lotos-Eaters, and Ulysses would not be a hero of the epic Odyssey. He would be just another victim. But anyways, branches they bore of that enchanted stem, laden with the flower and fruit, whereof gave to each. But those whoso did receive of them and taste, whoever tasted it, to him the gushing of the wave far, far away did seem to mourn and rave. So to that person, whoever ate it, the gushing of the wave which was gushing so far, it suddenly seemed to go far, far away. The sound seemed to fade away. Now you can see what is happening. The drug is taking its effect, right? So, interesting thing is that the wave has been personified here. So the wave has been personified here because usually it is people who mourn and rave, but here the wave is raving. So the wave raves. Wave, rave. Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of rhyme that he has selected. Wave, rave. On alien shores, and if his fellow spake, his voice was thin. Now see, again, after rave on alien shores, we did not understand what happened because enjambment happened. To understand on alien shores, let's read the earlier line. Far away did seem to mourn and rave. What? The wave on alien shores. As if the wave was coming from some alien shore. So, the wave was actually hitting the shore of the island of Lotos-Eaters, where they were. But they felt as if the wave was hitting some alien shore somewhere far away, and they could hear the resounding or the echo of that sound coming, and it was very light. Even when his fellows spake, even when the others were speaking, his voice was thin. Their voices were thin, as voices from the grave, and they felt as if they were speaking from the grave. When you speak from 6 foot under the ground, your voice almost doesn't come, so it is very less. So they cannot hear anything now. And deep asleep he seemed, yet all awake. Amazing. Deep asleep, yet all awake. This sense of paradox. So this is what we call a I'll just erase this all. So this is what we call a paradox. Their condition was such after being drugged that they felt, did I just remove figures of speech? Anyways, they felt that they were sleeping although they were actually awake. So this is a paradox that we have. Sleeping but awake. And music in his ears, his beating heart did make. So when our heart beats, we can hear the beating of the heart in various organs. We can hear it in our ears. So you can hear it through your, when you put your hand over here on your wrist, you can hear it almost in any place in your body if you know the exact place to push. But the heartbeat, when it was falling on their ears, it seemed that it was not the heartbeat, but it was music. So everything started becoming interesting to them because they were starting to get drugged, and they were already drugged. And coming to the next stanza, which finishes off the introductory part. So they have come to the island. They have wondered at the beauty of the island. They have seen the Lotos-Eaters. The Lotos-Eaters have given them the fruit, and now they have eaten the fruit, and now everything is going far away, far away, far away. What happens next? They sat them down upon the yellow sand. So they didn't even have the power. The mariners did not even have the power to sit down themselves. So the Lotos-Eaters, who are pretty much used to the kind of intoxication that they have, the Lotos-Eaters sat them down. The Lotos-Eaters held their hands and sat them down on the yellow sand. So the sand was yellow. The sand in the beaches is usually yellow, between the sun and the moon upon the shore. So they were upon the shore between the sun and the moon. So remember, the moon was looking full face down and the sun is also setting. So it is a perfect twilight moment. And if you know, then twilight is the time at dusk or dawn, when that moment where the sun rises or the sun sets. So twilight is the time when all magic happens. Magic is at its highest peak during twilight. So between the sun and moon upon the shore, and sweet it was to dream of fatherland. And when they dreamed of their fatherland, that is Ithaca, which is in Greece. So when they dreamed of their fatherland, it felt sweet. They wanted to dream more about their fatherland, of child and wife and slave. So they did not just dream about their fatherland. They dreamed about their child, their wife, and their slave. Well, we don't really consider people who work at our homes as slaves today. But back in the day in Greece, every rich person, every good aristocrat, or even a soldier had slaves. Anyone who could afford a slave had slaves. And it was very normal, basically. So they remembered everyone, child, wife, slave, but evermore most weary seemed the sea, weary the oar. But suddenly, you know what? The sea started seeming weary. The oar started seeming weary. They just were so tired of the sea, so tired of the oar. In a way, what the drug is doing is that it is taking away, sapping away their energy to travel, and making them understand the reality of their situation, in which they are actually tired. They need the rest, but they have told their minds, do not rest, go ahead, reach home. They are just fueling that part which is lying down below. So I can say that the Lotos, what it is doing is that it is fueling their subconscious, something which is hidden in their mind, and something which is there, which is undeniably there, this feeling that they want to rest, they don't want to travel anymore, but they cannot do that because otherwise they won't reach their home. And this drug has been able to bring back those feelings. So most weary seemed the sea, weary the oar, weary the wandering fields of barren foam. Now this is a metaphor where the wandering fields of barren foam, here we have a metaphor. Barren foam. So foam is when the water strikes the shore, you have foam, you have brine, salty white water. So that is foamy in nature. So that is called foam. And the wandering fields is the sea. So basically, just as the seas are open, just as the fields are open and wide, often with some kind of grasslands on it, the sea is open and wide with a kind of brine, with a kind of foam on its corner. So here is this relationship where the wandering fields of barren foam is actually the sea. Now again, wandering fields. Who is wandering? The field is not wandering. This is double. This is double use of figures of speech. So you have a metaphor in which the sea is connected with, it is explained using the metaphor of a field. So the sea is a field, but also the sea is not wandering. The people in the sea are wandering. So this is a transferred epithet as well. So very interesting. I mean, this is what poetry is, my friends. This is imaginative use of your, knowledge of words, of your knowledge of how things work. Imaginative, extremely. So he has used metaphor and transferred epithet, that is hyperlage, together. I hope that I could explain this one. Weary the wandering fields of barren foam, then someone said. Now see, again we come down to language. So the narrator has stopped, now the language comes in. Some sailor says, we will return no more. We will not go anymore. This is the crux. And all at once they sang, and now begins the choric song. So this is the last line of the introductory part, and with the last line of the introductory part, the choric song begins. What did they sing together? Our island home, that is Ithaca, is far beyond the wave. It is beyond the sea. So amazing, another one. Wave. Far beyond the wave. What they mean is sea. They don't mean the wave, they mean the sea. So they used, the poet has used the part for the whole. The wave is a part of the sea, and therefore this is a synecdoche. Synecdoche. This is a synecdoche, where a part is used for the whole. So beyond the wave, whereas he means beyond the sea. So our island home Ithaca is far beyond the wave. We will no longer roam. We will just stay here. We'll just sit here, all dudes sitting together on the beach, enjoying the sweet air and the amazing weather and the beautiful atmosphere and all the amazing, beautiful sights around us. We'll enjoy this. That's what life is. And in the choric song, they'll actually go on to justify why this life, why this situation is better than any other situation in the world. So we'll get to that part in the next video. I hope that you have understood the introductory part. I encourage you to ask questions in the comments section so that I can help you more in understanding whatever is unclear. Thank you so much. I'll see you again in the next video.